In this video we're going to look at site access and facilities. So you'll recall that one of the things we need to do before we can start construction on the site is establish our site access and our site facilities. So we're looking at that in this video. The first thing you need to do is you need to establish access to the site from the public roading system. You'll have materials, you'll have plant, you'll have labour, all needing to come in from the surrounding community, and that means they'll probably be accessing the site from the public roading system. So the first thing is you need a access point from the roading system. Now the location of that could be constrained by the local council. The local council may restrict the number of entry points. They may restrict places where you can have your access. You also need to think about the visibility. You can have big trucks going into and out of the site, and they pose a traffic hazard when they go into moving streams of traffic. So there needs to be good visibility for the trucks to be able to see traffic in either way and for the traffic to see them. You also need to think about manoeuvring and turning. Can the trucks sort of manoeuvre into the access area quite well, quickly, or is it going to take quite a bit of doing? And also turning, if they're turning into it, how are they going to do that? Are they going to create a hazard when they're trying to turn into the site? Another issue you need to think about is if the site's got earthworks like this one here, you don't want it tracking dirt and stuff onto the public roading system. So you can see here it's a dirty site and they're tracking dirt onto the road, which is illegal. So once again you need to consider, do I need wash down facilities to clean the trucks before they leave my site, or is it not a problem? You also need to think about parking. So the workers will be coming to site somehow. Where are they going to park their cars? Where is the plant going to be parked as well? You may sometimes have your site some distance away from the nearest public road, in which case you'll probably need to build an access road. And there are different options. You can have just a dirt road, or you could have this, like this one here, a gravel road, or you could have a sealed road, build a full road just to get to your site. Now which one of those you use depends on the project. Obviously a dirt road is cheaper than a gravel road, which is cheaper than a sealed road, but you've also got to weigh up that, consider that a dirt road, if it rains, is not able to be used, so you won't be able to get to the site if it's raining and you've got a dirt road. So you might think, well, the consequences, the costs of not being able to get to site, having to close the site when it rains, means that it's worth my while to build a gravel road. Or it could be that a gravel road is not good enough, there's going to be lots and lots of heavy traffic and stuff and it'll break up too quickly, and once again you won't be able to get good access to the site, so you might think I need to get a properly sealed road. So it comes down to how much traffic is coming onto the site, how strong the road needs to be to cope with that traffic, and what the weather and soil conditions are like as well. The construction site is basically a workplace, a place of business, but it does not have the facilities that a place of business does. It doesn't have toilets or bathrooms or offices and things. So we have to set those up. So there's a whole lot of things we need to set up. There's the site offices for the site engineer, there's the lunchroom for the workers to actually have breaks and all that sort of stuff, toilets. You can't have them sort of hopping in the car and driving 20 minutes to go to the local public toilets. You need to put toilets on site. Washrooms and changing rooms, optional. If the site is not all that dirty, if it's just an earthworks or a construction job, then the workers aren't going to get all that dirty and they can probably just go home in their work clothes. But if it's a contaminated site, or if they're going to get especially muddy and dirty, then you probably do need to supply washrooms and changing rooms. For example, I had a project where we were working on in a wastewater treatment plant. The workers were being exposed to wastewater, so they had to have changing rooms and washrooms so they could have a shower, change their clothes, and then they went home in clean clothes. Power, if you need it for tools and for computers, but nowadays with portable computers, with PCs, with laptops, you don't necessarily need power to power up an office. Drinking water can be bottled water, can be connected to the water supply. First aid kits should be available in the lunchroom, the office, and all of the vehicles. Material storage, you'll have big materials such as pipes and aggregate which can sit outside. So you've got to think about they need to be close to the work site so that the workers can get to them pretty quickly. They need to be secure so they don't get nicked. There needs to be easy access. Remember, there's going to be big trucks delivering these things, so the trucks have to come in, unload, and then turn around and go back. So you need to think about how are those trucks actually going to go in and deliver. And likewise, you've got to think about the trucks picking it up and taking it to site for construction. How are they going to do that as well? Plant and equipment storage. You've got hand tools, cement, stuff like that. You need to think about how am I going to keep that secure. Most of those things need to be kept out of the weather, so how we're going to keep it dry, how we're going to keep it secure, and we also need to keep it close to the work site. Security fence, if you can put a security fence around it, but oftentimes a big site like a subdivision or a road, you don't have that luxury. And as I mentioned before, access needs to be safe and central. So looking at offices in a little bit more detail, they should be close to the entrance so that when visitors arrive, they go straight to the office. You don't have visitors wandering around the site looking for someone to report into, so there should be a reporting in area right next to the site entrance. The size, it will govern the amount of office space required. Usually you have space for the site engineer and the foreman, so there's 2 desks there where they can sit down and do their paperwork. You normally have a large table sized for A1 sheets of paper where you can lay out the construction drawings and have a look at them. You need to allow room for several people to sit around and have a meeting, all that sort of stuff. With bigger projects, you may need more, so there may be more than just the site engineer and site foreman. There can be several dozen people for a larger project, so sometimes they have quite large buildings. Comfort, it should be away from noise and dust. Remember, it is an office space. You need to be able to talk to someone, so noise is a bit of an issue. If you can, group them together for ease of communication, and if you can locate them so that they can see the site, that's even better as well, so they can see what's going on. And you can see here quite a common thing is portacoms. So you can see they load onto trucks. This is a high ab truck. It's got a crane on it. They just load that up and then they put it into position. These are portacoms as well. So nowadays you can you have these portacoms which are portable buildings, if you like. In the old days we used to have caravans, same thing, used to hook it up and transport it to site. Worker facilities, so we've got lunchroom, once again an area where the workers can sit down, have their lunch, have a cup of tea, and once again they are portacoms as well. Well, it looks like I've even used the same picture. So transportable buildings, the same as we suggest for office buildings. Toilets, yes, so these are portaloos. And the advantage of this is you don't need to connect into the local wastewater system. They just transport them to site, you fill them up, and then they go and take them away. So then you don't even have to worry about disposing of the wastewater. So portaloos are actually becoming more and more popular. Showers only if you've got a dirty site, like I talked about before. Changing rooms, drying rooms, once again unusual for most construction sites, only if you've got a dirty site or a site where workers get especially wet or especially dirty. You also got to think about on-site parking and transport for the workers. If they're driving to work, where are they going to park? Things like that. If you're out of town, you may well require accommodation. So it might be the local hotel, or it might be that you set up your own little village. On-site storage, as I mentioned, you've got the tools and stuff like that, and a real good thing that's it's been around for about 10 years is shipping containers, because they're watertight, they can be locked and secure, and they've got enough space there to be able to sort of put all the tools and stuff in. So you can see here this has got shelves and shelves and shelves sort of with all the equipment and stuff on it, so they work out quite well, and they can be transported to site on a truck. On-site storage of large materials, so you can see we've got pipes here, we've got planking. So they can be exposed to the weather, so they don't have to be undercover like power tools and cement and things like that. Um, but they are quite big, so they're pretty hard to pilfer. But they do need to be safely stored. Now, one thing about safety is you've got to think about, even though you've got a fence around there, local kids coming and jumping all over them. These pipes here are hard to move, but if one kid does manage to move it, he can roll it on top of the other. When you've got pipe stacks, you're going to be thinking about kids are going to be climbing all over top of it. If it collapses, it can hurt them. And every few years you hear about a kid getting killed playing on a construction site. And it's our responsibility. You might think, oh, the kid's just climbed the fence and it's his fault. It's not. It's our responsibility, and the site should be left safe. And it also should be tidy. You can see here's a nice neat looking construction site, and here's an untidy one, and that just looks like a rubbish tip. It's unprofessional, it looks bad, and it's unsafe too. So people walking along here, there could be things they could trip over and stuff. So the site should be tidy. It should look good. It should look professional. Hazardous materials. If you've got hazardous materials, they need to be stored in a safe space. You got to think about if that ruptures, how you're going to sort of capture the hazardous material. You don't want it going into the local water supply. And the last thing we want to look at here is utility services. Sometimes you need gas, electricity, water, wastewater and telecom. You can connect into the local systems, but nowadays that's not so important anymore. You also need to think about the systems that are already there, the water, underground power, underground water. You need to identify them and protect them. So that ends this video.